Welcome to the Daily MBA, where business wisdom is served fresh and fast, straight from one of the top MBA programs in the world. I'll give you summaries of my lectures and readings, as well as the most important insights gained from an MBA, so you can apply all of this knowledge in every business. Let's get started. On today's episode, I have the honor to interview Sarah Baldeo, a leader, technologist, and neurologist with over 2 decades of experience in business strategy and tech. Sarah specializes in designing innovative technology applications that blend neuroscience and innovation and helps businesses manage their global risks while implementing sustainable change. Currently, Sarah is the CEO of ID Quotient Advisory Group, but on top of that, she's part of the global Forbes 40 Under 40. She's a keynote and TED speaker and also an actress. Throughout her career, she's taken up startups to IPO, founded consulting firms, and actively mentored emerging leaders. So I can't be more excited to have her here. Sarah, welcome to the Daily MBA.
Thank you for that very illustrious introduction, Maria. It's a long list. I forget that I've lived a long life. So thank you so much. I'm honored to be a guest on your podcast.
Great. So my first question, considering this is a very long list, is one question that everybody asks you, I imagine, and it's how does a neuroscientist end up as a technologist and futurist?
It is often the number one question that I get. So I started out my career on the path to become a neurosurgeon. Like many people whose parents immigrated to Canada, my parents had this dream that their daughter was going to become a doctor. Doctor or lawyer were kind of the acceptable things for what I could do in my life. And so I was doing my thesis work on the cerebral cortex functionality that is measured in functional magnetic resonance imaging. And I was on the path to become a neurosurgeon. And my parents were very happy. So before I even finished my thesis, I was approached by the CEO of a company that built risk model algorithms for Scotiabank. And he reached out to me and he said, we are looking at redesigning our user experience for how we track fraud and how we work with the banks. And he had this very unique idea that a neuroscientist would have a useful perspective on approaching technology. And so he made me a job offer. And I will say a lot of people said, you're on the path to become a neurosurgeon. At the time, I had already been accepted to McMaster to do my MSc, and I accepted the job offer. And so I started my career even before I finished doing my thesis work, I was very, very fortunate. I always say to people, a lot of life has to do with luck and skill. And so I made a switch. I had a great job working as a research assistant in a neuroscience lab, and I also worked in a social perception lab. And so I made the switch, started my career as part of this company. Now the company is owned by Davis and Henderson, but that was almost 20 years ago. And so once I made the switch from neuroscience into technology, what I found was I was able to use more and more and more of the intersection of neurology, neuroscience, understanding what happens in the brain when people are making decisions. And that was able to impact the work that I did in digital transformation and technological innovation. So I often say to people, anything you're doing in your academic pursuits, it's not a waste of time, even if you pivot. It's never a waste of time.
Okay, and if we want to go into a specific set of skills that were transferred among all of those stages, which ones would you think were the most valuable ones?
My answer is, everybody, I don't think many people like doing research studies. I don't think people like sitting in a lab and poring over other people's research and coming up with your thesis and writing it and rewriting it. But those skills that you learn when you're working with research subjects, when you're working on a research study, and this is for your thesis, it is transferable. Those skills that you get when you're building out a study design, and then you're working with research subjects, and then you're poring over the data and you're doing data analysis. all of that you can transfer to almost anything. So
Okay.
I remember over the years when I went and I was working with consulting firms, when I worked at Deloitte, when I worked at CGI, when I worked at some of the biggest consulting companies in the world, all of those skills that I used in my research and my thesis work on the science and kind of life sciences side, they were completely transferable to consulting and digital innovation because it's the same premise of doing research and data analytics. You need to use these skills anyway.
Okay. That's very interesting. And so talking about data analytics, I know that you also have some very technological skills that you're using. And when I first talked with you, you were recommending that young people should learn how to use all of this data analytic techniques and also about generative AI, quantum computing. So I had one big question, and is how can you keep up with all of this technological changes and new learnings? Because it's going so fast that I don't think you can even learn it at a business school or at a, like, say, a standard school.
I genuinely believe that every single day, so I wake up very early. I wake up at about 5:30 in the morning. Before you engage in social interaction with anybody, I tell people you need to keep up with innovation. And so on a daily basis, before I even talk to my 13-year-old, I do anything, I read my emails, I read about what's going on. I read about, oh, did Google come up with something new? What's going on with OpenAI? Oh, there's new ChatGPT agents that people are creating. What's happening with the Department of Defense? I genuinely believe that whether you're looking at geopolitical news, whether you're looking at new technical innovations and product releases that are happening, devoting that time every single day to constantly learning and absorbing information. When you architect your day that way and you start your day with learning, that follows through the rest of your day. And it is a significant investment of time. But to your point, Maria, what you learn in an MBA, whether it's Rotman or Smith or Ivy, whatever you're learning, these are theoretical principles that are very crucial and important. But when it comes to technology, I mean, people often say, why did you learn to code? I learned to code because I wanted to be able to communicate with application architects and developers. And then I became an application architect. And so even in my career, when I had my list and I said, oh, I want to be a vice president. Oh, I want to be in the C-suite. Oh, I want to be a partner. And I was checking off those things. Being able to code and being able to consistently seek knowledge and information on a daily basis, it gave me the ability to speak the language of technologists and to speak the language of leaders and to kind of bridge the two. So the answer is set aside every single day, at least 30 minutes to learn. Personally, I try to learn 3 new things every day. Learn 3 new things. It doesn't matter what it is. What's happening in the news? Has a company come up with a new product? Is there a new product release? Is there a new approach to generative AI? Learn 3 new things every single day, and it will transform your life.
Awesome. That's great news for me because I'm a huge nerd.
That is a good thing. People say, oh, you need to spend time to enjoy life. Learning for me is enjoyable. It's fun.
Yeah, same here. So that's very good. I also wanted to ask you another question, and is how do we complement all of those things that you're learning? Because something that I've always encountered is you may know a lot, but you also have to know how to communicate everything that you know. So, and well, you're a great communicator, you're a TED speaker, keynote speaker. So what do you think we can also do to practice soft skills, and which ones do you think are needed for success?
So I'll tell you a very short story. The first time I was in the C-suite, I was a chief privacy and compliance officer at a very large consumer reporting agency. And the CEO said to me, this is a very important learning. He said, you sound really smart. when you're talking, but I don't know what you're saying. I don't know the words you're using. I don't understand what an API is. I don't know what this means. He said, your brain is moving so fast, but I don't know what you're saying. And this was a very important inflection point in my learning of soft skills. And the most important soft skill I learned was I needed to kind of build a translator in my brain. And it's I think for women in engineering, for women in science, for women in management, and for people who come from the STEM world, I would say build a translator. Because there's a tendency when you're in technology and science and engineering, you start to use a lot of acronyms. Why do you do that? Because it's easier. Because you get used to communicating with other people who they know what you're saying. If you use, even I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, I'm going through RFP season. And they said, what's an RFP? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. I know what that means. People in consulting know what that means. And so I started practicing making an effort to talk to people who were not in my industry. Okay. I made an active practice at least once a day. Don't only speak to engineers. Don't only speak to people in science. And so every day I would say, can I at least even a 5-minute conversation? Can I have a conversation with somebody who's in HR? Can I have a conversation with someone who's in accounting? Can I have a conversation with someone who is on the path to become a lawyer? It doesn't matter if it's a fellow student. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who's in senior leadership. Try to make the effort to talk to people who are on a different life path than you are. And what you'll notice is it helps build your communication skills so that you can convey these complex thoughts and ideas to somebody who's on a completely different journey than you are. And so I think that what happens, particularly when you're doing your MBA, you start to, I call it MBA brain. You get MBA brain. And so you talk to somebody about congruence theory, or you talk to somebody about DCF valuation, and you kind of get used to using this lexicon, right? You use a lexicon that other people who are like you understand. And so I encourage people who are building their career, make an effort to talk to people who don't know what you're saying. And it will help you adjust your language to become a better communicator. Because if you only talk to people in your industry, you kind of get this group thing, right? And I think that one of the most important soft skills you can have is being able to communicate with people who don't have the same academic background as you, who don't have the same corporate background as you do. And that's the way you build what I think the most important diversity is diversity of thought. That diversity of thought and being able to engage in diversity of thought is the most important soft skill you can have as you want to become a leader.
That's amazing. The other day, I was just reading about that, and I think there's a scientific name even for that, which is called the curse of knowledge. Yeah. So you become kind of blinded because you already know stuff and you're assuming people know that. Yeah. So I think that's a great takeaway that we can learn from you. And now, as we're getting close to the end of the episode, I wanted to ask you, what are your future plans and goals? We already read the long list at the beginning. So do you have any more upcoming and exciting projects in the near future?
I do. I just announced that I have signed an agreement for my book. So I have, over the years, I've written a lot of articles. I released an ebook that's available on Google Play, which is called Own the Spotlight. It's very much aligned to what you mentioned about communication and personal branding and the science of how do you put yourself on a stage, even if you're an introvert. I am actually an introvert. Most people don't believe it, but I like to work by myself. I like my quiet. I like my personal space. And when they watch my TED Talk, they say, but you communicate and you perform and you're on TV and you have commercials. I said, yeah, but I'm happy when I'm by myself. And so this year, I just signed a deal with a great book literary agency called Transatlantic Agency. and we are working on my book, which is called The Resilience Equation. And so that will be released in the near future. I am getting married this week. And so, as I shared with you, Maria, I've learned over time to become more open. And so I actually met my future partner at Rockman. And so this is certainly very exciting to be building a new family. And I would say my best advice for anybody as they're building their career is for myself, I often focus so much on the next big thing. Oh, I wanted to do a TED Talk. Oh, I want to have a book deal. Oh, I wanted the 40 under 40. These are the things my list, very scientific list. I definitely wish I could tell myself 10, 20 years ago, take time to focus on your personal life. Take the time to enjoy even the small little goals and the little wins that you have. Like, make the time to enjoy them. As much as you're ambitious, take time to enjoy all the great things that you're doing. And so definitely 2024 will be a very exciting year as I start my new family and my book is released and I start working with some very exciting clients in Europe. But I always believe that women, like it says in the Barbie movie, we have to be everything. We have to look a certain way. We have to be a certain way. We have to be successful. We have to be this way. I always say to people that I mentor, you don't have to be anything you don't want to be. You can be as ambitious, as creative, as driven as you want to be, and nobody can tell you that there is a perfect way to be as a woman in leadership and a woman in business. You have this blank slate to be whatever you feel like being.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Sarah. I can't thank you enough for giving us all of this advice. And so I'll leave in the comments all of your links, your link to your website, your TED Talk, and in the future to your book. So all of our listeners can go and check it out and learn more from you, because I truly believe you're an inspiring woman, especially in tech, where you can't find many women that are leading these positions. So thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to talking with you again.
Thanks so much, Maria.